Okay, so let's start. With a question and a much quoted picture. We can see a bunch of animals waiting for assessment. And the teacher talking, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Can you see any problems? Is there anything wrong with this specific demand? Do they all actually have equal access? Do they receive a fair treatment? Not fair at all. Why not? They can't. Not all of them can do the task. That's pretty interesting. So I would say that the goldfish is doomed, and the rest of them, maybe the penguin, will face difficulties. They have different skills and different abilities, but they are all asked to do the same thing, the task could actually be fair and valid, but not fair for all of them. Let us think of your experiences as teachers. So what is, in your opinion, the function, the role of assessment in the language classroom? Do you assess your students? And why? To test abilities. Okay, to know what they know. To improve, that's pretty interesting. So you hope that you will have an idea of what they can and cannot do. You will get an idea of their strengths and weaknesses. But I got an answer, unfortunately, to grade them. Why unfortunately? Do you think that grading is not important? Do we need scores to control them? Pretty dominating view. Do we need scores? Grade can be challenging. What do you mean challenging? What could make grading challenging? To assess them, we need to measure their skills. So in most of the cases, we hope as teachers that through assessment, any form of assessment, we will have the chance to improve their learning by checking what they can do, what are their strengths and weaknesses, whether and to what extent they are progressing. We try to judge efficiency of teaching method and adjust it if necessary. Judge how successful our learners have been in mastering the content of a course. And at the same time, find out how successful our teaching practices have been. We need to formative assessment is more important than summative one. I keep that point. We'll come back to that later. And we need to report progress to parents or educational authorities. When we do that, we normally have to assign some kind of score or grade. How do you normally assess your students? Do you give them paper and pencil tests? Young learners, 6 to 12 years old, diagnostic first. Self-assessment is equally important. How do you assess? I use games and online cards. The younger they are, the more difficult it becomes because of their characteristics and their needs, different ways. Games and kind of activities and group work for assessment purposes. At the same time, you need to make sure that your assessment is reliable and valid. So you need to make sure that what you give them, what you ask them to do, would actually give you a valid idea, picture of their competence. So we are fully aware of the fact that we can either have standardized tests, normally used summative assessment, in other words, normally used for grading purposes or for taking any kind of decision. But with young learners, as most of you have mentioned, we would like to check, monitor progress throughout their learning in order to intervene, improve parts of their learning. We would like to, because they are young, monitor their throughout the year and spot weaknesses in order to address them as soon as humanly possible. So assessment is not always, does not always mean testing in a standardized form. If we wish to have a positive impact on our students, we should try a more systematic and adopt a more systematic ongoing process to gather evidence about their learning. And this kind of evidence can be used to improve. The sound is poor. Yeah, we have a very unstable internet connection because too many people go online at the same time. So hopefully the data we get, collaborative learning, and the data we get from any kind of assessment is used to identify a student's current level of knowledge and skills and to adapt lessons to help the student reach desired learning goals. This should be actually the outcome of any teaching or assessment practice. The fact that we wish to, you can't see me because I have turned off my camera due to unstable internet connection, but I will turn it off before we finish. I will try at least. Sound is much better now. Okay, thanks God. So, students, we try to assess our students because they, not just us, the teachers, but they need to know where they stand in relation to their learning. There's no video, there is a PPT presentation, and I will keep commenting. Students this way can become more self-aware of their abilities and their skills. If we wish to develop autonomous learners, we need to make them aware and help them become more self-aware of their abilities, of their skills. In formative assessment throughout the year, students are participants and leaders in their own assessment. And by participants, we mean actively involved in the learning process. And leaders in their own assessment, so they can make choices, they can decide and work at their own pace, sharing learning goals and understanding and sharing with our students learning goals, explaining learning goals to them, understand what they can do and what they need, what they are expected to be able to do at certain levels of competence. Understand how their learning is progressing is a way of asking them to take responsibility of their learning. Have them actively involved and make them feel responsible. Exactly. In order to auto-regulate, monitor their process, they should get involved, more actively involved in the learning process. They should be more autonomous. what they should be able to understand, how they progress, what next steps they need to take, and how to take them. What are the ways? Intrinsic motivation, exactly this. So, at the same time, we're teachers. And as teachers, I believe, we're asked to do many things. We are asked, in certain cases, either to design a curriculum or with a group of colleagues, or adapt a curriculum assigned by others, the Ministry of Education. A curriculum is a formal document providing guidelines, but giving, in most of the cases, no practical information. Curriculum designers do not tell us how we are going to teach our students. They tell us what we are expected to do, set objectives, but not how. In most of the cases, we will have to follow a syllabus and plan our lessons, create lesson plans for specific groups of students, which means that our lesson plans cannot be repeated from one group to another because of the differences in our students' abilities. Our classes are not identical. We teach mixed abilities classrooms, and we need to think of differentiated learning to adopt to different practices depending on our students' needs. So even if we have certain lesson plans ready-made, provided to us, this doesn't mean that they will work for all of our students. We are there to judge, to act to make informed decisions based on our students' needs. We will need, in most of the cases, to align our existing materials to specific learning objectives. We will need to create assessments and learning materials that are at the right level for a specific group of students. But we're not expert item designers. We're not supposed to be able to design tasks from scratch. We do that, but we might not have the chance to validate them, pilot and validate them. Understand what our students should be learning at each level. By understanding, I mean that we have the curriculum, we have the common European framework of reference, but as its name, as it implies, for two different classes, depends. Not that you can't use it, but actually you would be lucky enough to be able to use it without any kind of modifications. Because your students will be different per se. So in most of the cases, you will need to add bits and pieces to adjust your teaching practices to your learners' needs. Exactly, to the different classes. And as English language teachers, we normally teach a lot of different classes. So imagine that a class would consist of 20, 15 or something. Like that, 15 students, or 20 students. If you have 5 different classes, you have 100 students per week to teach. And that just, at the same time, set the learning objectives and know what they should be learning at each level. 29 students per class. How many students, how many classes have you got? 35 students, oh my goodness. That's, 10 classes, so 300 students. Can you imagine that? What a workload. At the same time, you will need to provide evidence to school administration about student progress, because you will need to provide evidence of your work. And you will need to give feedback to students and parents. Feedback to parents. How can you do that? On the one hand, you're dealing with young learners, so you wish to have parents involved in the learning process? Why do we need to have parents involved in the learning process? To support their kids. They're still pretty young. Parents should convince, motivate, or not push, but motivate their children. Sometimes it is difficult for parents to be involved because they need special training. But research has shown that when trained, parents can facilitate. The parents' involvement can be beneficial. And give feedback to students. Must be involved, but we need to pay attention to their involvement. They are important, but they should not control the whole process. We need to distinguish roles and make sure that we show respect to each other. Feedback to students, which is equally important. How can you provide individualized feedback when dealing with such a great number of students? Because feedback, in order to be useful, it has to be individualized. Students, you can obviously give collective feedback, but you at the same time need to highlight strengths and weaknesses per student in order to know what they need to improve. And you need to write reports. And the more detailed reports you give, the more professional you are. You give the impression, at least. The more detailed reports you give your students and their parents, the more seriously they will treat your opinion, because they feel that you are there, you monitor your students so well that you provide evidence of all the work you have done with them. So you show them that I take care of my students. I know what your kid or what you as a student can do, positive feedback, and what needs to be reinforced. And you can have open sessions, you can have conferencing with parents and students. And in some cases, it can be rather beneficial to have special sessions with both, involving both students and their parents. Or we work together, give them this kind of impression or feeling that we are all together and we are a group working towards the same end. Involvement, exactly. But we are teachers at the same time. I mean, we need to make sure that we keep to our teaching practices. So I feel that we are asked to do too many things. So what can we do? Is there a way out of this? Can we get any help or support throughout? Is there any way to get support with formative assessment? Are there things other people can do? We need help. We live in a digital era. We have actually experienced, I don't know about you, but we have actually experienced the importance of technology over the last couple of months during the pandemic. It has become even more important how technology can help us, can support us. But we are not prepared for that. I know, tell me about it. The way we learn in our society is based around communications. And
sound, I think, at Jenny's end. So please bear with us just a little while we try to get her back. No, she's having difficulties with her internet. Give us just a few minutes, please, or hopefully less than that. Oh, you can hear me, that's great. Okay, I can see Jenny's come back in again. Let's see if this works. Jenny, can you hear us?
Can you listen to me now? Okay, I keep connecting. Sorry for that. Terribly sorry for that. I keep connecting. I think it is better now. But you know, too many people, too many problems. Okay, let's hope. I will keep connecting. I have I'm using two different laptops. Okay, perfect. That's really nice. And we'll keep on. We have to make our students or help them become digitally literate at the same time. And one of the most obvious benefits of any kind of digital communication is its flexibility of delivery. We should keep that in mind, flexibility of delivery, especially for young learners. At the same time, any kind of digital application enables students to have a more diverse learning experience. A diverse learning experience. Think of young learners, the fact that they get easily bored, the fact that they need more and more activities, the different styles of learning and the characteristics of young learners. So, although diversity, exactly, and in fact, although the need and value of a wider and much more representative range of assessment data in our classrooms is widely recognized, EFL teachers express their uncertainty as regards using digital tools to collect useful data on their students' learning ability. And they keep expressing problems, research has shown that, regarding the validity and reliability of these means of assessment. So, in fact, what keeps worrying them is whether a paper, adequate tools to assess them exactly, and a paper and pencil version seems to be an easier way to control learners, to get something out of them. Sometimes they express a fear to let them alone, do things on their own, as if the teacher has to be ever present. Nevertheless, digital testing can have a very positive impact on students' learning. Don't have internet access, but they can download applications. Learning and assessment can occur with digital testing, not online testing. Digital testing can occur at times that are more convenient and productive for both students and teachers. And I've actually highlighted here convenient and productive. Think of your students choosing to do a test when it is easier, when it is more convenient to them. And this way, and productive when they feel less tired. Because what we wish is actually to give them the chance to do the best they can. If we need to give them, to create opportunities for them to get the best out of themselves if we wish to have a valid assessment. So we need to create the conditions for this optimal performance. Students videos can be watched at any time, exactly. And with any kind of applications that can be easily downloaded on a tablet, students can work. It is more productive because they can do they can perform in the best possible way if they are given, if we create the conditions for them. Students can work at their own pace. This is very important for young learners. Obviously, within a given framework, but not always feeling under pressure are banned. Exactly. I know that, but things keep changing, and legislation, it takes time for changes to happen. And even if certain applications cannot be used in a standardized classroom setting, this doesn't mean that it cannot be used for extra practice at home, or that we should not be aware of any changes happening. Work at their own pace, feeling that they do not they don't have a teacher monitoring them, pushing them all the time, or other colleagues, their classmates watching them, making a mistake. We're dealing with young learners here. Young learners wish to be praised, but at the same time, they are intimidated and they feel more intimidated when they make mistakes in front of their classmates. We'll see about accuracy. Very important that the online assessment process can be broken into smaller, more frequent portions of time. And I would say the fact that they can actually complete the task and then stop, make a pause, and resume later on, and do another task when they feel less tired. Young learners have short attention, concentration span. So they need breaks, exactly, learning chunks. The fact that we give them the option to do bits and pieces of the task, of a test, at their own pace, instead of asking them to finish to complete the test within 45 minutes. With an opportunity for reflection in between. How can they get reflection if they get immediate feedback? There are always timelines. Yes, there is always a specific time per task. How do you think children can stop and reflect? When they are given immediate feedback. And when they get a wrong answer, they can get feedback why this is wrong, what could be the right option. Exactly. And repetition means retention, increases retention.
And they are pretty impatient, I would say. They need to know what they get, what would be their score. With digital resources, using any kind of digital resources, learning and assessment can take place at any location. If we believe in learning as a continuous process, includes students and teachers from diverse locations. I would say that it is even more important when dealing with students with learning difficulties. Think of hyperactive students. There are many these days. How they would feel if they were given options. If they were given a choices to make. Or dyslexic students. Dyslexic students need frequent breaks and they need appropriate tasks given their difficulties. They need, for example, young dyslexic students need more visual prompts. They are good at reading aloud, but they find it difficult, as we all know, to write. This doesn't mean that they should not be given be treated in a fair way, be given all those tasks. But as teachers, we cannot keep adjusting paper and pencil tests. This is too much work. Digital resources give learning a new relevance to our contemporary society. Cheating is always an option. I will come back to that when we finish. If we train, if we educate our students to do whatever they can for their own benefit, and if we convince them that the most important reason behind any task, behind any test or any activity is their benefit, their improvement, cheating will stop or will at least will not be present when dealing with low stakes assessment, not high stakes one. So this is for their own practice, their own good, their own benefit. Has nothing to do with getting accepted for a job. That's why we talked about formative and not summative assessment. We wish them to improve, increased opportunities to access and share information more easily and readily while joining online communities. And we can create communities with the other students and support those communities. Exactly. TPR, total physical response activities, are very important. How can we have them digitalized? Oh, there are always considerations and limitations. But let's see. We need to have access to reliable and appropriate technology. How can we do that? We need to make sure that we keep update, and there are many tests in the world, too many, I would say, putting extra pressure on both teachers and learners. We need to check validation studies. We need to, do you think evaluating by what could work? Yes, it could. Depends on what you are actually trying to check. The amount of information, again, information overload and continuous evaluation. Information overload is a huge problem because we have our students exposed to a huge amount of information, but we do not always guide them on how to use that information. Information can become, and the fact that there are too many resources can become overwhelming for our students and for ourselves. If not properly managed and if not properly guided, I would add here. So students can be presented with new information while provided with sufficient guidelines, training. So all students, we know that, and it was mentioned in our chat room, they do not have regular or reliable access to the internet. Look at me, obviously. So is there another way? Instead of relying on any kind of online testing. Some technologies, there is another way to download applications these days. Some technologies and tools require training, and we wish to use tools. This is pretty difficult and important at the same time, because technical training may not be readily available to students or teachers. We are not going to become IT maniacs, I would say. We cannot we do not need special training. We cannot keep getting special training in order to use a specific application. And these days, me too. But imagine how, whether we can find applications that are user-friendly. Applications for educational purposes do not need too sophisticated. They should be simple, easy to use, in other words, user-friendly, and to the point. To the point, I mean that there are so many, extremely advanced systems, but they might, you might do what you want to do as a teacher, serve your educational purpose, a simple and easy to use application. We don't need to have special IT skills to use educational applications. I will show you one example. When teachers or students do not find peer support for their any kind of digital initiatives, it can be an isolating experience. The best advice I can give is to, or even when you ask your students to do something at home, they can come back and report to the rest of the classroom, report to their classmates. So have a kind of discussion. Facilitates our work, but at the same time, it can be a burden. So we are there. It is time consuming, and we should always make compromises. Exactly. It can make it either easier or more difficult, facilitate or complicate the situation. Sometimes you spend more time checking what an application can do in terms of possible features implemented, instead of whether they serve a specific educational purpose. What am I trying to teach them? Is there another way? Do I need to use such complex applications? So at the same time, when thinking of teaching and assessment, we should bear in mind young learners' characteristics. So they get bored quickly, which means that we need variation. They are meaning-oriented, which means that we should always set a specific purpose to our tasks. They like to discover things, play around. You mentioned it earlier. Trial and error in some cases, and discover things. And by discover, there should always be an outcome. They prefer concrete activities because of their age, actually. They are not able to actually move from to specify learning aims and objectives. They need specific information, concrete activities to know what they have to do. They are egocentric, so they wish to be treated as the only ones in a room. At the same time, they're pretty imaginative. They come up with new, ideas all the time, and they like to be praised, and they like to imitate others. They have short attention span, we all know that, which is important, because if you wish to have retention of information, you need first of all to have attention that will lead to retention. They respond very well to praising is needed. They enjoy imitating, keep that in mind. Graphical representations, visual prompts are extremely important. Skillful at listening and repeating what they have heard. You mentioned earlier, one of our colleagues, repetition. But repetition, imagine having any kind of repetition recorded at the same time to feel important. And they enjoy learning through play. Drawing, coloring, moving. You mentioned TPR. How can you do that online? Is there a way? How can you, I will say, is there a digital application to help us? When assessing them, we need to think, obviously, of their age, conceptual and social development, content of language learning, ROSPAC effects of testing. We mentioned earlier whether we should use assessment for improvement, for their benefit, remedial work, listening and visuals. Exactly, that's what they enjoy doing. Feedback can support learning, and our assessment should be in harmony with the learning process. We cannot assess them using tasks that are completely different from their abilities, from what we have been doing in a classroom. Let's see, let me show you one application. So, one application I have been using for research purposes, and I have been using with my, not just my students, but my kids, is Pearson English Benchmark. You can go online and give it a go. There is a demo version. What is it? It is a test, an English test for young learners. It can be downloaded and delivered on a tablet. All 4 skills are included and can be tested, assessed. I would use assessment and not testing, standardized one, in a fun game-like way. It includes 5 tests per level, and it can be used to assess competence from A1 to B1 plus level. You have results available within minutes. Everything is stored and sent to the teacher. And feedback is available as can-do statements for both learners and teachers. Remember, feedback and reports. You can get reports, detailed reports, and you can add. You can get them as doc files, so you can add your own comments, and student certificates. It is a tool exactly as process-oriented rather than product-oriented method. And you get recommendations for what to teach next. Not specific tasks, but what are those skills your students fall behind, seem not to have. This could be a motivating factor. This could make and valid at the same time. When professionals work with educators, professional item writers, test designers, work with educators to create something for them, to help them. It can be used, the specific one. We're not dealing, again, with formal assessment here. We're dealing with formative assessment. So you can use it as a diagnostic tool at the start of the year, the beginning of the year. Then, if you wish to monitor your students' progress, you can ask them to take a test again by the end of the year or by the end of a term or a semester. And they can use it for extra practice in order to prepare for any kind of standardized test. Exactly, to help them improve. Let me show you some examples to have an idea of what it looks like. Let's see, the reading section. What you can see here, for example, is a time measurement. And per task, they have defined time and they can control themselves based on the time. They have a microphone for recording. They move from one activity to the next. Before each activity, they get training. Everything is explained to them. They can work on their own. They can record. If they read aloud, for example, here for A1 or A2 level, they read aloud and they can record their message. Pearson English Benchmark. young learners, and it is an application, and they can listen to themselves. You need to get in touch with Pearson, I think, for that. Look at this bit here. Reading in order to write. So they listen to a story, and you have two different parts of the story here, and then they were asked to complete with the visual prompts. They were asked to finish the story, and they could drag and drop words in order to form sentences, and different combinations were possible. You mentioned total physical response. One way they enjoy is dragging, dropping things. How can they do that? In order to teach them language awareness, syntax, contextualized knowledge, we give them sentences, short ones for their level, obviously, and they are asked to put the word, to drag and drop the word in the right place. And you know what makes it different? The fact that all these words, all items have been piloted and calibrated for difficulty. So, for example, instead of doing the job ourselves as teachers, here you can be certain about the level of the specific example. So, bears is a word A1 level students are expected to be able to know. Reading aloud here and answering questions, what you can see is a karaoke-like reading aloud. So they start reading and the lines get colored and they feel appreciated, as if the computer is actually watching them. Listening activities, listen and choose. Just click on the right word, or they have visual prompts and they can drag and drop them. Listen to instructions and follow the instructions. Like a game-like testing environment. Very, very user-friendly. Writing, short bits, and moving on to extensive writing. What you can see here is to give them a prompt, a visual prompt, and they are asked to fill in the gap. Or they have listened to a story and they are asked to complete it. They click on the box, they get a keyboard, and they can type into their ideas. This can be extremely useful to dyslexic students as well. Yes, and they keep writing, and this has been designed for extra practice. You can use it at school as well, but it is a formative type of assessment. So yes, for extra practice and getting reports. Speaking to the heroes and have everything recorded, or having a dialogue with with the boy or the girl, talking to the application and having everything recorded. And what you get, this is just a sample, is a report of each student or of all of a group of students of your classroom. Look at the report here, which can help you design of the steps that you need to take. 6 to 7, yes. For example, here you can see for the listening part, you have a performance summary of what they can do based on specific tasks and what are the recommended activities. Recommended activities, we mean learning objectives. So for this specific student, what would be beneficial is to give him extra activities on directions, or he or she finds it difficult to guess the meaning of unfamiliar words. So you get tips that can help you address their needs. And you can download, I don't know if you are aware of the global scale of English created by Pearson. It is a more detailed kind of framework. What you can do is that you can download, they are free, and you can download the learning objectives for young learners. They are pretty detailed. Exactly, Carmen. You know why? Because you have much more detailed information compared to the Common European Framework of Reference. You have even what you see here is a score based on the benchmark tool, but you have very detailed learning objectives for each different score and each different skill. So you can download them. And another thing that I think would be of great help to you is the toolkit. Again, it is free of charge, and you have access to material. This depends on us as teachers. We can make the difference. You check the online site, Pearson, and you can have access to the toolkit. You can download material. Everything has been calibrated. You can search based on your learning objectives or on the scores of your students and get extra practice. Obviously, this is too good to be true, but you know that artificial intelligence systems can analyze speech and writing, meaning that teachers don't have to spend time marking tests. And we are not here to claim that a tool can replace a teacher, obviously. We are irreplaceable. But what we can do is to make our life easier. Any help is more than welcome, exactly. If there are ways to keep a record and monitor our students' progress, we should take advantage of them. We are there to have them exposed to new information. We are not there to do all the logistics. We can take advantage of any technology available. Yes, you can use the comments and you can actually implement, enhance them with your comments. But this is more, you can use a validated tool to support your classroom observations. Peer assessment is extremely important. They need to be well trained. There has been a lot of research. It can be of great benefit, especially to young, especially for young learners. But it takes time. It takes time to be effective. It takes time. If you email me, I can send you a very nice video. Nursery school children trained to peer assessment. That's really amazing. You won't believe it. I won't show you. I have done a lot of research using the application for reading and speaking skills with 12-year-old students. And I have, because I followed an experimental approach, I have spotted important differences regarding the experimental group. Students' attitudes have changed a lot, and there has been great improvement. No matter the circumstances, and we are in the middle, obviously, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and these are challenging times, but I keep thinking of our role as teachers, and I keep thinking of the little bird here. What are you doing? There's a fire in a forest, and the owl is talking to the sparrow. What are you doing, bird? Why are you running to the sea? Why are you carrying water with your beak? You can't save the forest. Run. And the little bird, I'm doing the best I can with what I have. We are teachers. We can make an impact on other people's life. And we are dealing with young learners, which means that we can help them create their future. And the more we try, the better it gets, I think. So Thank you so much for joining our session. You can play around, you can check different applications. Keep up the good work, keep safe, keep sane at the same time, and hope we'll meet again. Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure and a great, great honor.
Jenny, really great session. So engaging, so much fun and so interactive. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. One day left of the Spring Days webinar program. So please check it out online on Pearson's website, and hope to see you again very soon. Thanks again.